You've probably been told that retiring in Canada on pension alone is no longer realistic, that CPP and OAS are barely enough to survive, let alone retire with dignity. Most advice assumes expensive cities, rising rents, and lifestyles that pensions were never meant to support. But Canada is bigger than that narrative. There are still hidden Canadian towns where a modest pension can cover housing, food, and basic living costs. In this video, we explore 25 places where retiring on pension alone isn't a loophole, it's simply a smarter choice. Before, do not forget to subscribe. Let's start. Number 25. Flin Flon, Manitoba, northern mining town, where $400 rent exists. Flin Flon sits on Manitoba-Saskatchewan border with about 5,000 people and housing costs so low that monthly budget on $1,500 pension income actually works with money remaining after covering all necessities. According to rental listings from late 2025 and early 2026, two-bedroom apartments rent for $400–600 monthly, which is what Toronto residents pay weekly for rooms in houses with multiple roommates and bathroom lineups requiring negotiation schedules. Let's construct realistic monthly budget. Rent $500 for decent two-bedroom apartment, allowing guest room or home office. Utilities $150 for northern Manitoba heating costs when winter temperatures hit -35 regularly. Groceries $400 buying actual balanced diet including meat and vegetables, not just pasta and rice survival rations. Phone and internet $75 for basic connectivity, leaving $375 for healthcare costs not covered by provincial insurance, transportation, clothing, occasional entertainment, and emergency savings that slowly accumulate, providing buffer against unexpected expenses. That's $1,500 total, with substantial buffer remaining, which represents financial comfort impossible in cities where rent alone consumes $1,500 monthly before considering food, utilities, or anything else required for actual living, rather than just preventing immediate death from exposure or starvation. Flin Flon has hospital providing emergency services and basic medical care, which matters enormously for retirees whose healthcare needs increase with age and whose mobility for traveling to distant specialists may be limited. Number 24. Kapuskasing, Ontario, Northern Ontario, affordability with French flair. Kapuskasing sits in northeastern Ontario with about 8,000 people, bilingual French-English culture creating distinctive character and cost of living making pension-only retirement viable rather than poverty sentence that expensive southern Ontario creates. According to rental listings, one-bedroom apartments rent for $350–500 monthly, two-bedroom apartments for $450–650 monthly, providing housing options that leave substantial budget remaining for actual living beyond just shelter. Monthly budget breakdown: rent $450 for one-bedroom apartment, utilities included in many rentals or approximately $150 when separate for Northern Ontario heating, groceries $350 buying adequate food through careful shopping and cooking from scratch rather than expensive prepared meals or restaurant dining, phone and internet $75 for basic service enabling communication and entertainment, leaving $475 for healthcare costs, transportation, clothing, occasional purchases, and emergency savings that provide financial security. That's $1,500 total, with significant buffer proving that CPP and OAS can support comfortable retirement when housing costs are reasonable rather than completely divorced from reality like Southern Ontario, where $1,500 monthly is poverty income requiring charitable assistance and government programs beyond public pensions that were supposed to be adequate but prove insufficient when housing consumes everything before food enters budget considerations. Kapuskasing has Sensenbrenner Hospital providing emergency services and medical programs adequate for most situations, creating healthcare access that's reasonable for healthy retirees, though complex chronic conditions requiring frequent specialist visits may present challenges when specialists are located in larger centers requiring travel. There are family doctors accepting patients periodically, which is better than many Ontario communities where doctor shortages mean years-long waiting lists and emergency room dependence for non-emergency care because alternatives don't exist. Number 23. Minto, Manitoba, Prairie town, where rent is almost free. Minto sits in southwestern Manitoba with about 900 people and housing costs so absurdly low that urban Canadians assume listings are scams or properties are condemned, except they're real and represent actual market prices in Prairie town, where demand is minimal and landlords are desperate for tenants willing to occupy properties and pay something approaching regular rent rather than leaving buildings empty generating zero income while property taxes and maintenance costs continue. According to rental listings that stay posted for months without generating applicants, you can rent entire two-bedroom house with yard in Minto for $400–550 monthly, which is literally what Toronto residents pay weekly for basement rooms in houses where 7 people share one bathroom and kitchen access requires negotiation because everyone's cooking schedules conflict in overcrowded conditions that landlords profit from while tenants suffer. Monthly budget for Minto retirement, rent $450 for house, not apartment but actual detached house with yard and privacy. Utilities $125 for Manitoba's reasonable utility rates that haven't been fully privatized into profit-maximizing operations extracting maximum revenue from captive customers. Groceries $350, buying real food through careful shopping, phone and internet $75, leaving $500 for healthcare, transportation, clothing, entertainment, and savings that accumulate slowly but represent impossible luxury in expensive cities. Number 22, Smooth Rock Falls, Ontario. Dollar lots and cheap rent in Northern Ontario. Smooth Rock Falls sits in northeastern Ontario with about 1,200 people, and rental markets so tenant-favorable that landlords compete for renters rather than renters competing with 50 other applicants in bidding wars that expensive cities create through shortage, where any available unit has multiple desperate applicants willing to pay whatever landlords demand because alternatives don't exist. According to rental listings, one-bedroom apartments in Smooth Rock Falls rent for $300–$450 monthly, two-bedroom apartments for $400–$550 monthly, creating housing affordability that makes retirement on CPP and OAS viable, rather than poverty sentence that expensive regions impose on retirees whose only crime was earning normal wages throughout careers that didn't generate exceptional wealth but provided middle-class security that pension systems were supposed to support. Monthly budget, rent $400 for one-bedroom apartment, utilities $150 for Northern Ontario heating when temperatures drop to -35 regularly, and buildings require constant heating to prevent pipes from freezing and causing expensive damage. Groceries $350 through disciplined shopping and cooking from scratch. Phone and internet $75, leaving $525 for healthcare costs not covered by provincial insurance, transportation, occasional purchases beyond absolute necessities, and emergency savings providing buffer. Smooth Rock Falls has medical clinic with family doctors providing primary care, which in Ontario's healthcare crisis is remarkable accomplishment, deserving recognition given that many larger communities can't recruit physicians willing to practice in small towns where medical infrastructure is limited and professional opportunities for advancement are constrained compared to urban hospitals offering more diverse cases and better resources. Number 21, Quesnel, British Columbia, Interior BC affordability, contradicting provincial reputation. Quesnel sits in central BC with about 10,000 people and housing costs that contradict everything you've heard about BC being unaffordable paradise reserved for wealthy, because rental listings show one-bedroom apartments for $350–$550 monthly and two-bedroom apartments for $450–$650 monthly, making BC living viable on CPP and OAS income that seems impossible if you've only considered Vancouver or Victoria, where those amounts don't cover parking spots in neighborhoods where you definitely don't want to park overnight. Monthly budget for Quesnel retirement, rent $500 for one-bedroom apartment, utilities $150 for BC Interior where heating costs are elevated during winter when temperatures drop to -30, though climate is drier than coastal BC's damp gray misery. Groceries $400 accounting for BC's elevated food costs due to transportation expenses and provincial economics. Phone and internet $75, leaving $375 for healthcare, transportation, clothing, and discretionary spending or savings that slowly accumulate. G.R. Baker Memorial Hospital provides emergency services and basic medical care adequate for most situations that healthy retirees encounter, creating healthcare access that's reasonable though not comprehensive, with Prince George being hour north for specialist care when conditions require more advanced intervention than local hospital offers. The distance to specialists is consideration for retirees with chronic conditions requiring regular monitoring but manageable for those without serious health issues. Winter is northern interior BC with -30 common and snow from November through March, but climate is drier than coastal BC, where rain and gray skies from October through May create psychological depression that many find worse than cold, dry interior winter where sunshine is common and snow is manageable rather than the damp, gray, perpetual drizzle that makes you question whether life is worth living through 9 months of rain. Number 20, Williams Lake, British Columbia, Cariboo Region. Affordable living Williams Lake sits in central BC with about 11,000 people and housing costs making BC retirement viable on public pensions alone, despite provincial reputation for being exclusively expensive destination requiring substantial wealth. According to rental listings, one-bedroom apartments rent for $400–$550 monthly, two-bedroom apartments for $500–$700 monthly, providing housing that leaves budget remaining for actual living beyond just shelter. Monthly budget, rent $500 for one-bedroom apartment, providing adequate space for single retiree or couple who don't require multiple bedrooms. Utilities $150 for interior BC where heating is necessary from October through April. Groceries $400 accounting for BC food costs that are elevated compared to prairie provinces due to transportation and provincial economics. Phone and internet $75, leaving $375 for healthcare, transportation, and discretionary spending or emergency savings. Caribou Memorial Hospital provides emergency services and medical care adequate for most situations, creating healthcare access that's reasonable for healthy retirees, though specialist care may require travel to larger centers for conditions beyond hospital's capacity. The town serves as regional hub, providing services, shopping, and amenities that smaller Caribou communities lack, while maintaining affordability that coastal BC destroyed through speculation. Winter is interior BC cold with temperatures dropping to -30 regularly, and snow from November through March requiring proper winter clothing and vehicle preparation. But summer is warm and beautiful with temperatures in low 20s, providing comfortable conditions for outdoor activity and recreation that enhances quality of life during months when weather is pleasant, rather than enduring cold that winter presents as reality. Number 19, Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia, mountain living on pension income. Tumbler Ridge sits in northeastern BC with about 2,000 to 500 people and rental prices so low for BC that confirming legitimacy requires multiple sources, because numbers seem impossible when Vancouver studio apartments rent for $2,000 monthly and Victoria one-bedrooms command $1,800 monthly. According to listings, two-bedroom apartments rent for $550 to $750 monthly, providing BC mountain living at Manitoba prices. Monthly budget with roommates splitting two-bedroom apartment. Rent $325 for half of two-bedroom apartment, creating affordable housing through shared accommodation. Utilities split $63 when dividing costs between two people. Groceries $300 for single person buying food. Phone and internet $75, leaving $737 for healthcare, transportation, savings, and discretionary spending that creates comfortable budget rather than poverty that expensive BC regions impose. Even solo renting one-bedroom apartment at approximately $600 monthly leaves $900 for food, utilities, and other expenses, which is tight, requiring careful budgeting and disciplined spending, but manageable through cooking from scratch, avoiding unnecessary purchases, and prioritizing needs over wants that consumer culture encourages but pension budgets don't support. The landscape is stunning. Rocky Mountain foothills with waterfalls including Kinuseo Falls, canyons, hiking trails, and mountain terrain that rivals famous destinations, but without crowds or infrastructure that tourism creates when destinations become popular. Winter is northeastern BC brutal, with temperatures dropping to -35 regularly. Heavy snow requiring constant management and isolation when weather prevents travel. Number 18, Minto, New Brunswick, maritime affordability and character. Minto sits in central New Brunswick with about 2,500 people and rental prices, making maritime retirement achievable on CPP and OAS alone without requiring additional savings that most Canadians don't possess. According to listings, you can rent entire two-bedroom house for $450 to $600 monthly, creating housing affordability that urban Canada destroyed decades ago through speculation, treating shelter as investment commodity rather than basic necessity. Monthly budget, rent $550 for house not apartment, but actual detached house with yard and privacy. Utilities $150 for maritime heating during winter when temperatures drop, though rarely to extremes that prairie or northern regions experience. Groceries $350 at reasonable maritime prices that are elevated compared to some regions but manageable through careful shopping. Phone and internet $75, leaving $375 for healthcare, transportation, and savings. The town has medical clinic with family doctors providing primary care, and Fredericton is 45 minutes away for hospital services when emergency care or specialist consultations are needed. Winter is maritime damp and gray, but rarely extreme cold that kills, making it more psychologically challenging than physically dangerous, unlike prairie or northern winters, where exposure causes frostbite in minutes and death when proper precautions aren't followed. The maritime character provides cultural identity with friendliness and community bonds that larger cities lose through anonymity and population scale that prevents knowing neighbors or developing social connections that small towns create through necessity and proximity that makes avoiding interaction impossible when everyone encounters each other regularly through daily activities. Number 17, Shaunavon, Saskatchewan. Prairie Peace on Pension. Shaunavon sits in southwest Saskatchewan with about 1,700 people and cost of living, making retirement on CPP and OAS not just viable, but actually comfortable with money remaining after covering all necessities. According to rental listings, one-bedroom apartments rent for $350 to $500 monthly. 2-bedroom apartments for $450–600 monthly, providing housing at prices that seem impossible to urban Canadians accustomed to paying double or triple those amounts. Monthly budget: rent $450 for 1-bedroom apartment, providing adequate space. Utilities $100 for Saskatchewan's cheap utilities that are among Canada's most affordable due to provincial policies and energy sources. Groceries $300 through careful shopping and cooking from scratch. Phone and internet $75, leaving $575 for healthcare, transportation, entertainment, and savings that accumulate monthly, providing buffer against emergencies. Shaunavon Hospital provides emergency services and basic care, with Swift Current being hour away for specialist care when needed. The town has services covering daily needs without requiring constant expensive trips to larger centers. Winter is Prairie cold testing commitment to affordable retirement when temperatures drop to -30 and wind creates dangerous wind chills, but financial security makes seasonal discomfort manageable trade-off. Number 16. Souris, Manitoba, Southwest Manitoba. Quiet Living Souris sits in southwest Manitoba with about 1,800 people, Suspension Bridge tourist attraction, and affordable housing, making pension retirement viable. According to rental listings, 1-bedroom apartments rent for $400–550 monthly, with 2-bedroom apartments at $500–650 monthly, providing options for different space needs and budgets. Monthly budget: rent $475 for 1-bedroom apartment, utilities $125 for Manitoba heating, groceries $325 through careful shopping, phone and internet $75, leaving $500 for healthcare, transportation, and savings. Medical clinic provides basic care, and Brandon is 45 minutes away for hospital services and specialist care when needed for conditions requiring more comprehensive medical intervention. The town has basic services including school, health clinic, post office, and businesses covering essential needs. The location in agricultural region creates distinctive prairie character, with grain elevators and farms providing scenery that's gentle and peaceful rather than dramatic, but appealing to retirees seeking tranquility over stimulation. Number 15. Reston, Manitoba, border town with cross-shopping opportunities. Reston sits in southwestern Manitoba near Saskatchewan border with about 600 people and housing affordability, making pension retirement comfortable. According to rental listings, 1-bedroom apartments rent for $350–500 monthly, 2-bedroom for $450–600 monthly, providing housing at prices that leave substantial budget remaining for living expenses. Monthly budget: rent $450 for 1-bedroom apartment, utilities $125 for Manitoba heating, groceries $325, phone and internet $75, leaving $525 for all other expenses and savings. Brandon is approximately 1 hour away for hospital services and major shopping when needs exceed what local businesses provide. Location near Saskatchewan border creates opportunities for cross-border shopping when price differences between provinces make travel worthwhile for bulk purchases or specific items, where competition and provincial taxes create price variations that budget-conscious retirees exploit through strategic shopping across provincial boundaries. Number 14. Kenora, Saskatchewan, Potash region. Stability Kenora sits in east-central Saskatchewan with about 2,200 people and economic stability from potash mining, providing regional employment. According to rental listings, 1-bedroom apartments rent for $400–550 monthly, 2-bedroom for $500–650 monthly, providing affordable housing in community that's economically stable compared to towns dependent on volatile industries. Monthly budget: rent $500 for 1-bedroom apartment, utilities $100 for cheap Saskatchewan utilities, groceries $300, phone and internet $75, leaving $525 for healthcare, transportation, and savings. Town has hospital, schools, and shopping adequate for daily needs without requiring constant travel to larger centers for basic goods and services. Prairie location provides agricultural character, and potash industry creates economic base that's more stable than oil and gas, or forestry that experience dramatic boom-bust cycles, affecting employment and community viability when industries contract during economic downturns. Number 13. Maple Creek, Saskatchewan. Old West Heritage. Maple Creek sits in southwest Saskatchewan with about 2,300 people, Old West Heritage character, and affordable housing. According to rental listings, 1-bedroom apartments rent for $400–550 monthly, 2-bedroom for $500–650 monthly, providing housing at prices making pension retirement comfortable rather than poverty that expensive regions create. Monthly budget: rent $500 for 1-bedroom, utilities $100, groceries $300, phone and internet $75, leaving $525 for other expenses and savings. Location near Cypress Hills provides recreation and natural beauty, unusual for Saskatchewan's generally flat landscape, creating tourism opportunities and outdoor activities that enhance quality of life. Old West heritage creates cultural identity with festivals and community events, providing social engagement and activities that small towns sometimes lack when population is insufficient for supporting diverse programming and cultural life beyond minimal basics. If you like this video, do not forget to subscribe before continuing. Number 12. Pipestone, Manitoba, free lot program and low cost. Pipestone sits in southwestern Manitoba with about 700 people and free lot program for those willing to build homes. According to rental listings, one-bedroom apartments rent for $350 to $500 monthly, two-bedroom for $450 to $600 monthly for retirees, preferring renting over homeownership that ties up capital and creates maintenance responsibilities. Monthly budget: rent $450 for one-bedroom apartment, utilities $125, groceries $325, phone and internet $75, leaving $525 for all other needs and savings. Brandon is 40 minutes away for hospital services and major shopping, providing access to services without requiring living in larger town that some retirees find overwhelming. Prairie, Manitoba location provides agricultural character, and small population creates tight-knit community bonds where everyone knows each other, creating social cohesion that larger communities lose through anonymity and population scale, preventing personal connections. Number 11. Elliot Lake, Ontario, retirement community by design. Elliot Lake sits in northern Ontario with about 11,000 people deliberately marketed as retirement community, creating infrastructure and services designed for seniors living on modest fixed incomes. According to rental listings, one-bedroom apartments rent for $500 to $700 monthly, which is affordable for CPP and OAS budgets compared to southern Ontario, where equivalent apartments cost $1,500 monthly. Monthly budget: rent $600 for one-bedroom apartment, utilities $150 often included in rent, groceries $350, phone and internet $75, leaving $325 for healthcare and discretionary spending. Town has hospital and medical services designed for aging population, with doctors accepting senior patients and recreation facilities offering programs targeting retiree interests and physical capabilities. Community understands retirement on modest income because that's target demographic, rather than wealthy retirees who can afford any location, creating environment where living on $1,500 monthly is normal, rather than poverty requiring shame or charity that expensive destinations create through social stratification. Number 10. Swan River, Manitoba, Northwest Manitoba Regional Hub. Swan River sits in northwestern Manitoba with about 4,000 people serving as regional hub, providing services to surrounding areas. According to rental listings, one-bedroom apartments rent for $450 to $600 monthly, two-bedroom for $550 to $700 monthly, providing housing affordable on pension income. Monthly budget: rent $550 for one-bedroom apartment, utilities $125, groceries $325, phone and internet $75, leaving $425 for healthcare and other expenses. Hospital provides emergency and some specialist services, creating healthcare access better than smaller communities while maintaining affordability that larger cities destroy through demand-driven price inflation. Regional hub role creates employment in healthcare, education, retail, and services that wouldn't exist in smaller communities, maintaining economic vibrancy and population diversity that prevents town from being exclusively elderly retirement community where demographics skew heavily senior and youthful energy is absent. Number 9. Antigonish, Nova Scotia, bohemian North Shore village. Antigonish sits on Northumberland Strait with about 700 people and bohemian character attracting artists, counterculture types, and retirees seeking alternative community. According to rental listings, one-bedroom apartments rent for $500 and $700 monthly, two-bedroom for $600 to $800 monthly, which is elevated compared to prairie provinces but reasonable for coastal Nova Scotia. Monthly budget: rent $650 for one-bedroom apartment, utilities $150 for maritime heating, groceries $350, phone and internet $75, leaving $275 for healthcare and discretionary spending. Bohemian character creates accepting environment where diversity is celebrated rather than judged, and community values creativity and authenticity over conformity and wealth. Farmers market and folk music scene provide social engagement and cultural activities unusual for small town. Northumberland Strait provides warm water beach access unlike frigid Atlantic coast where swimming is endurance test even in summer, creating beach culture and water recreation that enhances quality of life. Number 8. Pictou, Nova Scotia, Scottish heritage and warm waters. Pictou sits on Northumberland Strait with about 3,100 people and Scottish immigration heritage creating cultural identity. According to rental listings, one-bedroom apartments rent for $550 to $750 monthly, two-bedroom for $650 to $850 monthly, providing housing affordable on pension income with careful budgeting. Monthly budget, rent $700 for one-bedroom apartment, utilities $150, groceries $350, phone and internet $75, leaving $225 for other expenses and emergency savings. Scottish heritage creates cultural identity with festivals and community events providing social engagement and activities connecting residents to traditions and history. Northumberland's straight beaches provide warm water recreation unusual for Canadian maritime provinces, where Atlantic coast water is frigid even during summer. Aberdeen Hospital in New Glasgow, 10 minutes away, provides comprehensive healthcare access, reassuring retirees whose medical needs increase with age. Number 7. Antigonish, Nova Scotia, university town with healthcare. Antigonish sits in northern Nova Scotia with about 4,500 people, shaped by St. Francis Xavier University, creating intellectual atmosphere. According to rental listings, one-bedroom apartments rent for $600–800 monthly, two-bedroom for $700–900 monthly, which is elevated due to university presence but manageable on pension with careful budgeting. Monthly budget, rent $750 for one-bedroom apartment, utilities $150, groceries $350, phone and internet $75, leaving $175 for discretionary spending, which is tight, requiring discipline. St. Martha's Regional Hospital provides exceptional healthcare for a community this size, creating medical security important to retirees. University creates cultural opportunities, including continuing education, where seniors can audit courses, lectures providing intellectual stimulation, and concerts offering entertainment. Highland Games celebrate Celtic heritage, creating cultural engagement and community identity, connecting residents to Scottish traditions. Number 6. Thompson, Manitoba, Northern City Services. Thompson sits in northern Manitoba with about 14,000 people and mining industry providing employment. According to rental listings, one-bedroom apartments rent for $600–800 monthly. A two-bedroom for $700–900 monthly, which is elevated for Manitoba but provides urban services unusual for northern communities. Monthly budget, rent $750 for one-bedroom apartment, utilities $150, groceries $350, phone and internet $75, leaving $175 for other expenses, which is tight but manageable. City has full urban services including hospital, shopping, and amenities that smaller northern towns lack. Mining operations create employment, though automation has reduced numbers, and northern location means extreme cold and isolation. But community services are superior to smaller northern towns, making Thompson viable for retirees prioritizing services over complete affordability. Number 5. Port Williams, Nova Scotia, Quiet Valley Village. Port Williams sits in Annapolis Valley with about 400 people adjacent to Wolfville, providing university town proximity without bustle. According to rental listings, one-bedroom apartments rent for $650–850 monthly, two-bedroom for $750–950 monthly, which is elevated but provides valley lifestyle. Monthly budget, rent $800 for one-bedroom apartment, utilities $150, groceries $350, phone and internet $75, leaving $125 for discretionary spending, requiring careful budgeting. Valley Regional Hospital in Kentville provides emergency services, and Annapolis Valley location provides agricultural scenery and pastoral beauty. Proximity to Wolfville gives cultural access, including university events, without living in University Town, whose character some find incompatible with retirement, seeking peace and tranquility rather than youthful energy and constant activity. Number 4. Bridgewater, Nova Scotia, South Shore Service Hub. Bridgewater sits on South Shore with about 8,700 people providing substantial services while maintaining relative affordability. According to rental listings, one-bedroom apartments rent for $700–900 monthly, two-bedroom for $800–1,000 monthly, which is elevated but provides superior services justifying costs. Monthly budget, rent $850 for one-bedroom apartment, utilities $150, groceries $350, phone and internet $75, leaving $75 for other expenses, which is extremely tight, requiring strict budgeting. South Shore Regional Hospital provides comprehensive healthcare, eliminating travel for most medical needs. Town size provides services including specialists, shopping, and amenities that smaller communities lack while maintaining affordability superior to Halifax, where equivalent housing costs double Bridgewater prices. Number 3. Baddeck, Cape Breton, Broad-Door Lake Beauty. Baddeck sits on Broad-Door Lake in Cape Breton with about 800 people and spectacular scenery. According to rental listings, one-bedroom apartments rent for $600–800 monthly, two-bedroom for $700–900 monthly, providing Cape Breton living at reasonable cost. Monthly budget, rent $750 for one-bedroom apartment, utilities $150, groceries $350, phone and internet $75, leaving $175 for discretionary spending. Victoria County Memorial Hospital provides emergency services, though specialist care requires Sydney 90 minutes away. Broaddoor Lake provides inland sea environment with sailing and kayaking opportunities. Celtic culture and music create social engagement and cultural life unusual for small community, enhancing quality of life through activities and traditions. Number 2. Lunenburg, Nova Scotia, UNESCO Heritage Town. Lunenburg sits on South Shore with about 2,300 people and UNESCO World Heritage designation protecting architecture. According to rental listings, one-bedroom apartments rent for $700–900 monthly, two-bedroom for $800–1,000 monthly, which is elevated but provides heritage character. Monthly budget, rent $850 for one-bedroom apartment, utilities $150, groceries $350, phone and internet $75, leaving $75 for other expenses requiring extreme budgeting discipline. South Shore Regional Hospital in Bridgewater, 20 minutes away, provides comprehensive health care. UNESCO designation protects character, preventing development, destroying heritage. Working waterfront maintains authentic maritime identity alongside tourism, creating balanced economy rather than exclusively tourist-dependent community. Number 1. Mahone Bay, Nova Scotia. Postcard perfect affordability. Mahone Bay sits on South Shore with about 1,100 people and iconic 3 churches, waterfront creating postcard scenery. According to rental listings, one-bedroom apartments rent for $700–900 monthly, two-bedroom for $800–1,000 monthly, providing coastal living with heritage character. Monthly budget, rent $850 for one-bedroom apartment, utilities $150, groceries $350, phone and internet $75, leaving $75 for discretionary spending requiring careful budgeting. Medical clinic provides primary care, and South Shore Regional Hospital in Bridgewater provides emergency services. Artistic community creates cultural vibrancy unusual for a small town. Waterfront provides aesthetic value and recreation access that retirees prioritize. Community has maintained authentic character, welcoming newcomers rather than resenting them, as happens in places where migration creates tensions. Subscribe if you learned that pension-only retirement is viable in affordable communities, and comment which town appeals most, because conversations help people make realistic retirement decisions.